Hello, everyone. First, let me just say that I'm very impressed. I am always impressed with the talent of the students at this school. I watched a few of the singing and other talent-oriented activities from the spring games. It's still early. I'm recording this on the Wednesday, and we don't know obviously who won yet. But from what I've seen so far, both teams have a strong presence. Lots of creativity and lots of talent. So well done and keep up the good work. So I'm recording this because I'm traveling. And I'm not sure if I'm going to have the internet reliably or not to be able to host a class, an online class. So I'm recording this just in case. I may post it. If it turns out my internet's fine, I may not even post it, in which case you probably won't even see this. So that doesn't... I guess assuming that you're seeing this, it means that my internet isn't working. So anyway, we'll see how this goes. Just as a quick reminder, the Tinkercad assignment that we did last class before the break has been posted and will be due shortly. So work on that if you didn't do it during class, and make sure that that's posted. I'm going to review really quickly the export feature because there's one class which I used another file format for. And everyone should be using the correct file format. I will go over that in a second. And this is one of two videos. This is obviously more geared to the Snapchat Lens Studio folks because this shows you what to do next with your the nameplate that you made last class. If you're using code.org, just continue with that, and there should be a video posted shortly. I think actually we may not even need another video because I think the videos are pretty self-explanatory in code.org itself. But I may post a video. I'm not sure. Anyway, getting back to this, if you click on the design that we worked on last day, I just want to make sure that everyone has exported this using the correct file format. And the file format that we're going to use ends in a .glb. Right? So as a quick review, click export. Make sure that it's the GLTF file format, which ends in a GLB extension. Once you've selected that and downloaded that to your downloads folder, we can then import that into Lens Studio for the next step. And I'm going to turn my camera off because if I don't, I may run into problems recording this video. Okay, so we've got Lens Studio up and running, and if you click All Templates, you will be able to see the one that we do next. Now, I have introduced this, I think a couple of weeks ago I started to talk about this. It's Chain Physics, which shows up under my recently used templates. And if you did open it a couple of weeks ago, it should show up there for you as well. If it doesn't, then choose All Templates, and it's alphabetically organized, so it should be under C, right? It should show up after, depending on what version you have. I think there may be a new version out. But it'll be in the C's anyway. So Chain Physics, roughly around here. The other way to get to it, and this may even be easier rather than clicking on All Templates, is just go to File, the File menu, go to New Project from Template, 3D, and Chain Physics, right? That's another way to get to it. If you're better with menus, this may be easier for you. So just click this, or click it on the other screen. And once it loads in, you will see our workspace. And you'll also see me with a goofy looking flower stuck to my head. But we can fix that. And we will. So you guys, I suppose the girls can leave on the earrings, these crazy earrings that I have. I don't think they're necessary. I'm not going to take off points if you leave them on. But you don't need them in this particular exercise. So I'm gonna get rid of them. In fact, I'll even delete them. I will multi-select by holding the Shift key down, and I will delete those so they're gone. And so now all I have left is my flower stem chain. And just to show you what that looks like, basically chain physics is a process by which, in this case, Lens Studio calculates, or Snapchat, the application on your phone, calculates different points along a chain, and it applies the rules of physics to those points. So you'll see how it kind of bends and sways and moves around. It's kind of an elastic object, and it also, gravity affects it in different things as well. But that's really what chain physics refers to. It's almost, you can think of this, there's many joints here, as you can see in the objects panel. There's a whole bunch of joints, and they're all connected. And at the very end, we have our flower petal, which obeys the laws of physics. So anyway, we're not going to keep the musical note. We're going to get rid of that by right-clicking and selecting delete from the menu that pops up. And again, if you're using a trackpad, it's your 2-finger tap to do the same thing. And the musical notes, we don't need those either. So we should be left with this. The head we're going to get rid of. We're also going to get rid of the leaf. Now we do have to keep the stem because that's what we're using. This is the stem here. This is what we're going to be using to attach our other object. And we're going to leave petals on for just a second, but we don't need grass either in the flower. So I'm going to get rid of the, in fact, I'll get rid of the entire flower. So your screen should look like this. We've cleared out a lot of the extra stuff we don't need. Then we're going to import what we've just downloaded from Tinkercad, our nameplate. So we're going to go back to this, and we don't need both of them. So yours should say your name, nameplate, and we're going to drag that. This time we're going to do it a little bit differently. Instead of dragging to the resources panel, which is what we did last day with the picture files, we're going to drag this right to where we want it in the objects panel. This doesn't always work, right? This works typically with different file types, but not always with picture files. So if it doesn't work with picture files, that's why. But if we drag and drop this, a dialog box will come up, and we actually don't need these last two, but it doesn't really matter. You can keep them in, it won't hurt anything. But we don't have any animations, so it doesn't really matter for our purposes to include that. So we're going to import that, and so now we have Roberto nameplate showing up in the resources panel, and it also shows up as an object inside petals. And I'll show you why we do that in a second. We're basically going to replace petals with the thing we just added. So in fact, I think that's a little bit off. I'm gonna move it up like that. I'm actually now going to delete petals. So now it just looks like a stem sticking out of my forehead, which is kind of weird looking. But I don't know if you can see this, but if you look really closely, you'll see a little thing at the end. That's actually the nameplate. It just shows up really small. I don't know why it does that. Sometimes it does that. It's a scaling issue. And what you need to do is select the object, and you have to increase the scale so that you'll be able to see it. So in our case, I think 20 is enough. So we're gonna go to the scale under X in the inspector window. We're gonna hit Tab to move to the next one, and you can already see it looks a little bit. It's a little bit easier to see. Then we're gonna do the same thing underneath Y. We're gonna hit 20, hit Tab again, and we're going to hit 20 one more time. So now it's the right size. And now what we have to do is we have to rotate it and orient it so it looks right. So we're going to rotate this. We're going to rotate this 90 degrees around the X axis. So now it looks like Roberto is visible. And we're going to change, we're not going to change the rotation on the Y, but we're going to change the position of the Y. We're going to make it, instead of 59 or whatever yours says, we're going to make it 300. And that looks a little better. And if it doesn't look quite centered, mine actually looks pretty good. I think I'm going to leave it there. If it doesn't look quite centered, you can mess around with the X. In fact, X should really be 0, I think, because that puts it exactly in the center. The Z looks pretty good. We're just going to leave that. If you wanted it to come out or go in, you can change the Z value and make it fit accordingly. And one thing I didn't show you is the interface on Lens Studio works very similarly to Tinkercad in that you have a view cube, which you can obviously manipulate the same way by clicking on the arrows and other things. But in addition to that, you can, if you hold down the control key, you can move around the view as well. So it's actually almost exactly like Tinkercad. The only thing that's different is instead of pinching to zoom, you sort of scroll in and out to zoom in and out. But that's how that works. That's how the user interface works. And I'm actually going to leave it at that. That actually looks pretty good. My Roberto looks like it's just about in the right spot. Now you may notice that the letters look a little bit strange, and that's really just that's a Tinkercad issue. I'm not sure how to fix that. I haven't figured that out yet. We could, if you did this in Blender, you wouldn't have these different kind of jaggedy edges on the letters, but it shouldn't matter too much with what we're going to do, because we're actually going to give it a new texture anyway. And making sure that the mesh object is selected, your nameplate, we're going to go down here and we're going to add a resource, and we're going to pick one of the materials that they have here. I would recommend using PBR. That's sort of the default one, or diffuse will work as well. If you get into some of these fancier ones, you may have trouble getting it to look right, but you can be creative. I welcome creativity, so you can see what gold will look like or different things. When you do select it, make sure that number one, you have to change the material. You have to set the new material that you just added as your material for your mesh. So in other words, right now it says Lambert 2SG, right? That's what this is. That's what this Roberto is currently using as its material. We have to change that to diffuse, right? So we're going to drag this on the inspector window right where it says material 1, and now change that to diffuse. So you can see that the color's changed, and we can play around with the settings by clicking on diffuse, right? So I'm actually clicking on the resource. Now I'm actually changing the resource itself. And if I make any changes here, any changes I make here will automatically be transferred to the object, because the object is using this as a material. So I'm going to go to where it says color, and I'm going to change this back to a sort of a dark blue midnight color. And you can play around with the other settings here if you'd like. Some of them do very little. Some of them actually have a fairly bright, fairly intense effect. If you make it emissive, you can make it actually like a light. I don't know if this is going to work though, because I don't have a texture. I need a texture, which I can get from here, I suppose. Which looks gray. Okay, maybe I can have different. Anyway, you get the idea. You can play around with the settings here to whatever you decide you want it to look like. That's actually not a bad effect. Change that to fern. Okay, and maybe take that down just a little bit. And now I have a green Roberto sticking out of my forehead. There, something like that. And I've already shown you guys how to save previews and do all of that, so I will let you do that for yourselves. but you should do a logo and a lens preview. And after you've done that, publish the lens. So it should look something like this. Obviously, you're welcome to be creative. One thing I didn't show you is that there's sort of hidden materials. There's a materials library here, which you can use as well. You can have 3D mosaic, you can have car paint. All of these you can try. I find that they don't work as well as the one I just showed you. So if you just want to keep it simple, just use the diffuse. But if you do this one, you can. And don't forget though, when you add it, you always have to select your object, right? And you're gonna have to change the material of your object to whatever you just added. So if you just added vertex distortion, you have to then change this material in the inspector window so that it says vertex distortion, right? And that looks a little weird. I find that this doesn't work quite as well. And it may just be because Tinkercad doesn't save it as a mesh as well as other programs do, because it's a text file. It looks kind of, I don't know. Anyway, I prefer the diffuse, but if you'd like to try another one, these are more dynamic. I may try one other one. Let's see what iridescence does. But I want you guys to be creative too. So feel free to try some of these out and experiment, tinker with them, see how they work. And again, I have to make sure that I change my object, select my object, and iridescence looks interesting. Anyway, check it out. Feel free to try different materials. And once you're finished, publish your lens. And I will post this assignment shortly in Google Classroom. So have a good week, everyone, and we'll see you all soon. Bye for now.